Hello, welcome to the Homeschool Mommy Mentor. I'm your host today, Donna Goff, and I'm here to talk to you about homeschooling with toddlers. If you have younger children that aren't school age, you know that they want to mimic and they want to do something too, and they often want your attention, which becomes very difficult when you're trying to teach. And when I started doing the Power of an Hour, we were covering such general knowledge and beautiful history and literature and art and music and everything else. But I also knew that even though we were covering math, um, the all the math needed to go into pre-algebra in a 4-year period, I knew that they individually needed to learn math, all the different basic skills. And I also knew that they each individually needed to read, even though we did scripture study together as a family, that I needed to teach them to read and they needed to learn how to write. I thought, well, I've got an hour for Power of an Hour. I took a second hour and I divided it into 3 segments because I had a toddler that wasn't going to be busied by a pencil and a paper. She loved attention. She loved being read to, played games with, etc. And so I came up with a system. Since I was working with 4 children, my oldest that was at home was like 17, and she was pursuing her own studies. So I thought, what do I do to keep care of my youngest? And that's how I came up with this rotation system. It's based on their attention span, their need for imaginative play, their need for interest-led learning, and their need for skill teaching. So skill development, teaching them the skills. So I devised a chart, and the first day I took my oldest child, and I just couldn't wait to jump in and work with her with what she needed. My oldest child that I was working with while her 17-year-old sister was doing her own studies. And I noticed right away that this wasn't going to work because my toddler wanted my attention. And I thought, I need to start the other way. I need to start with the toddler, whatever the toddler needs. And while I'm working with the toddler one-on-one, all the other children are in independent learning, working on an independent project or reading a favorite book or drawing or doing something to develop a skill or create a project. One child learned all the flags of the world. Another child we had gone to a discussion group, and the lady there had talked about all the different ways people had tried to escape from East Germany when they still had the wall up. And so my daughter came home and she wanted to learn more about that. And so she was reading everything she could find about all the different ways uh, people escaped from East Germany. It was quite interesting. Um, my younger son wanted to work on his penmanship, and he was doing copy work. And so each child was choosing what they were interested in, and it was furthering the polishing and developing their skills. So I started the one-on-one with my youngest child while they were all in independent study. And in the one-on-one, it's whatever they need within their attention span and their development. Here they learn rudimentary scholar skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and how to set goals and work toward them. And then I would mentor them. And they had me for 15 to 20 minutes. I think there was only one day that I ended up going way overtime, and everybody was happy because those who were in independent study were just tickled to be able to find out what happened at the end of their story, and those who were in recess were just having a happy time of their life. And those that were with me one-on-one, the child that was with me, knew that we were going to stay with it till I could figure out what it was that she didn't understand in this math and how to teach it to her. I tried different ways of approaching. She was struggling with regrouping. And I finally had the idea of showing what it would look like longhand, because there's not a lot of crossover in children until they hit puberty. So they could see in a sequence the number 370, but 80% of children in sixth grade, if you circled the 7 in the 370 and had piles of objects and said, pick the pile object that this number in this sequence represents. Well, in this sequence, that 7 represents a 70. It represents 7 tens. 80% of children will circle 7 items. The crossover isn't there. And so I realized that's what was going on, and I had to show her what the numbers look like longhand. This is 300, which was 300. This is 70, which is 70. And this is 0 in the ones. And then you add them together and they compress. So when you're reading it, you're not reading 370 or 371. It's 370, and they have to realize that that is 7 tens. Then when you're borrowing a 10 to put it over here, it starts making sense to them. So I had to really break it down. The other children, I didn't have a problem with that, with math. And so I took that time that day. But see, the other children were happy where they were because they were able to continue what they were doing. And they knew that I would do the same for them. Okay. So one-on-one is whatever they need. And until they're developmentally ready for the next thing, it's anything they need. And so for my toddler, it was reading aloud to her the books she wanted me to read to her, or playing with her, or singing, or creating with her. And it might be listening to her tell me a story, or an older child, it might be reading a poem that they didn't understand, or a paragraph, or helping them with math. And during that 15 to 20 minute time I had with each child, I taught each child how to read and do basic math. We spent 5 to 10 minutes on a reading lesson and 5 to 10 minutes on a math, and we were making rapid progress like that. If I tried to go much longer, I would spend a lot of time in resistance. And so by keeping the time short within their attention span, they learned more and they retained more. So that was the first one, was the one-on-one. After the first round, 15, 20 minutes, I reset the timer and we changed places. I put the oldest child with my toddler and said, whatever she needs, play with her, sing to her, build forts with her, build with the blocks, have fun with her for 15 or 20 minutes. And one child went into independent study again. So everybody got one round on independent study when I was with the toddler, and then every child gets a second round. So they're getting twice in that independent self-directed project time every day. They're getting once with me, once in recess, and they're each getting twice in that independent time. And what this does is every time the bell rings, I get a different child to do one-on-one with. So every child gets lessons on the skills that they're trying to learn at that time, flashcards for multiplication tables or whatever. And every child gets an opportunity to polish their skills. And so this worked really well. We spent an hour learning this vast amount of stuff about art, music, spelling, grammar, history, literature, Bible stories, etc., as a group. And then they got one-on-one with me. They got recess time to play and dress up and be imaginative. and they got time to polish the skills that they're learning. And none of this was paperwork, busy work. None of this was me assigning them workbook pages and worksheets or anything like that. They're more motivated when they're taking the skills that they're learning and they're using them to further their projects and their interests. And they'll polish them and they'll develop them better. If a child is only interested in dinosaurs, you can ask them to put together a book for the family on dinosaurs. Write their names, describe what that dinosaur is about or whatever. You can let the child do projects and they will learn so much more than if you're using a workbook or a worksheet. So this was as simple as 1, 2, 3. One-on-one, recess, and self-directed interest-led learning. Those 3 things for the second hour. So the first hour was general knowledge, and the second hour was these rotations. It really changed things up, and my children started learning quite quickly when we got in the mode, pardon me, not the mood. And it was something that we do every day. So this is very simple. And as children grow and develop, your schedule can adapt and expand. You'll have fewer, you might not have toddlers anymore, and you might take longer in this. The one-on-ones turn into mentor meetings where they return and report to you on what they're doing and get assistance because you've already taught them the skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And so now they're coming to you and sharing the work that they're doing and the help that they need. And the independent learning, it develops into their scholar skills really become a springboard. And that independent learning time will expand for them. And then you don't have to do the rotations anymore. You're available for mentoring and they're working on their projects. And like my 17-year-old, she got her projects that she was working on and learning, and she would be in there studying for hours a day. And I didn't have to assign any of it because she loved learning and wanted to know. Some of the things that they did in independent engagement time was reading, independent study, self-directed learning, copy work, journaling. They worked on their Book of Centuries or Book of Nations, learning math, self-chosen learning projects of their interest, exploring and discovery kits. Those are, I don't know if you can see back here behind me, this is my crafts room. And so these are different plastic containers that have everything you need to do a certain type of project. Like the top one on the far left there, if you can see it right there, is all the stuff to do melt and pour soaps. And the box this side of it are things with wood that you paint. And below that, let me see, art tools, etc. And so each box has something to be able to complete a project. So that would be what you would do in a discovery kit. And this discovery kit could be a puzzle inside, or everything to do origami or calligraphy. It could be flashcards to learn certain math facts. Whatever the imagination that you and your child come up with to put in that discovery kit can be in there for them to do. I also had a library basket that they could choose books that were brought home from the library, and you could select books that go along with what you were learning in the Power of an Hour that week, and then they can go deeper in learning about the artists and the musician, etc. Anyway, that was the rotations, the independent, the one-on-one, and the recess. And it just dovetailed perfectly with Power of an Hour, and And it was a way to take the one-room schoolhouse into the 21st century, and everybody got to learn at their speed and work toward mastery instead of being pushed through a program and trying to get to the end of a book by the end of the semester, whatever the purpose that is. If the child's not ready, it's not very helpful. And if they are ready and they learn it fast, then what do? You go buy the next book. This way, it's a continuous learning model, and it's within their attention span. It's within their development. So power of an hour followed by these rotations works like, works really well on homeschooling many different ages of children and dealing with toddlers, which can get underfoot when you're trying to homeschool. And so I found a way for the child who was with the toddler was benefiting because they were getting a break and they were playing and having fun. And that toddler loved having all the attention of each one of her siblings. And so it's really a win-win situation all the way around. So that is how you get the skills in there. General knowledge first, skill acquisition, skill development, and play. All things that their brains need. Simple as 1, 2, 3. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and enjoy the journey.